Well, welcome everybody. This is Rick Keith with So You Want to Be a CIO snapshot interview. I think it's good for people to kind of see the perspective of different CIOs in different industries, and I'm very happy to be able to introduce and interview a friend of mine, Ed Ringer. Ed and I have been associates for quite some time and worked for the same company and worked for sister companies over the years. Ed has had a significant career in executive management in the CIO office, and more interestingly, I think one of the few technology executives that moved into the president's office, but not being in a technology company, which is something that I think people would be very interested in hearing about. Welcome, Ed. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Rick.
I'm going to ask you a few questions and just kind of pick your brain a little bit, not take too much of your time, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, sounds good.
So I think the first question that probably everybody ought to ask is why did you choose IT? I ask myself that all the time. Why did I choose IT? So why did you choose to pursue upper level management in IT?
You know, it's kind of interesting. I was always actually, IT itself chose me. I was a problem solver. I was an engineer. I operated in several engineering type jobs, and all of a sudden woke up one day and I was in an IT organization, and the interesting thing was I saw myself as a problem solver, and I loved dealing with people. I loved operating with people. And as I grew up and moved up the chain, I was always interested in kind of how the organization worked and how the company worked. And I got into a situation where I was moving up the ranks, and subsequently I had a mentor that told me one day, if you really want to get ahead, you're going to need to do all the jobs. Don't just do the one lane that you're in. You got to do a variety of these different jobs, and you'll prepare yourself. And I started doing that. I got moved around, and ultimately I got into a situation where being a CIO was kind of thrust upon me. I got into a situation where I spoke truth to power and told them they needed to cancel a project. And the next day I was assigned to not only lead the project, but to be the CIO of that organization.
Oh.
And I chose to take on the opportunity. So one of the things I would challenge people with is opportunities will show up. You prepare yourself and don't try to overthink an opportunity. Take it and do the best you can. And in my case, that really set my career in a particular direction.
So that's interesting. Your degree is in engineering from the School of the Mines in Colorado?
No, actually, University of Colorado Boulder.
Oh, okay.
I have an industrial and mechanical combined degree. So I went out. I started actually as an industrial engineer at Procter & Gamble and learned a lot about business and about cost engineering and all that at Procter & Gamble. And then spent a time at the power company in Southern Company and got thrust into. And it's a funny story. We got thrust into IT because I did budgets well. One of the organizations in corporate office saw that I could really do the budget well, and they grabbed me out of the field, and brought me into the corporate office. And the next thing you know, I was auditing systems, and then basically I made my way into the organization from a quality assurance, to be honest with you, and then pretty much did every job in IT, and managed people in every job in IT across the board. I pretty much. I can't think of any organization I didn't. I kind of came in through the planning and actually was in charge of strategic planning and systems planning for all of Southern Company for a while. And that's when I got the advice from a senior executive that if you want to make a career of this, you got to do more than plan. You got to go actually put the stuff in.
Yeah.
Which I think was best advice I ever got.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. I think when you and I first met, you were the head of the data center and infrastructure at Lithonia.
Right. Yep.
And
that was after I'd left. I learned a lot about politics in Southern, and we had a regime change. And every time, one of the things you learn as a CIO, every time you got a regime change, if you're lined up with the regime that left, you need to prepare yourself to look for opportunities.
Yeah, that's a whole nother,
it's a whole nother conversation.
Politics.
But it is reality because I've seen it repeat itself many times in my career, and it's not because you're good or bad. It just happens.
Yeah. So your career, as I started there, you've gone from discrete manufacturing. You were with the Southern Company, discrete manufacturing, electrical manufacturing. You've been nonprofit. You've done logistical services. So that's unusual. Usually CIOs tend to be, they're a manufacturing CIO, or they're a healthcare CIO, or they're a tech services CIO, but you have not, you've broken that mold. So what do you think, what kind of skills do you think you have specifically that lets you be that flexible?
So one of the things I would say to everybody is there's two kinds of CIOs as I see them. There's business CIOs and there's technical CIOs, and I think part of that's your personality, part of that's what drives you, and what drove me was learning businesses and the nuances of businesses and managing people. Those are my kind of two big skill sets.
Yeah.
To building a team, solving problems, and learning a business. So in all those cases, I will tell you, I learned all those businesses, and I spent lots of time learning. That was kind of one of the things I learned early in my career. Procter & Gamble actually did it for me. Before I touched anything in my job in Procter & Gamble for 3 months, I learned every job on the floor in that manufacturing facility. And they wouldn't let you do your industrial engineering until you had done every other job. Well, that kind of stuck with me. And so anytime I've moved into another organization or got the opportunity, it was really about learning the business, being about people and business process. And to be honest with you, I fixed problems. I believe that you ought to be about fixing problems in a business, and you can't do that unless you understand the business. Yes, you need to understand the technology and where it applies, but you really got to be kind of a student of the business. And I've been fortunate enough to kind of move around to where some of it's relationships with, some of the jumps I made were because I had really good relationships with executives and I followed those executives. That happens in IT. So you never want to burn any bridges. You want to have relationships and both up and down, and work with people because they will carry you. But when you get into a situation to be successful in these different businesses, you need to learn the business. And that's my biggest key there. And every business uses technology, and every business has its kind of interesting nuances about the way it uses technology that you can contribute to and help solve the problem.
Yeah. So that's an interesting point, is learning the fundamentals of the business and the jobs that are being performed in that business. But you also talked or mentioned a second ago about your skills in building a team. Mm-hmm. And as a young IT manager, building the team, I think is a critical skill. I mean, how did you approach that? How did you learn to build such good teams?
Well, part of it is I pride myself in I ask 4 basic questions relative to interviewing people. And one of them you asked me is why IT? I wanted to find people that came into IT because they had a passion about technology, had a passion about applying technology to business. I wanted people that cared, and that sounds like a mushy kind of term, but that really wanted to make a difference and cared about not only themselves but the rest of the team. And I wanted people that were willing to continue to learn. Mm-hmm. So because look, and I hate to date myself, but when I've been around for 40 years before I retired, and the stuff that's changes on a yearly basis, and now these days even a bigger cycle than that. So if you're not learning and applying technology and knowing what's available and willing to take out what you believe is the right way before, and kind of, in some cases, eat your own lunch, but I mean, basically continue to evolve. You're not doing that as a team. That's a problem. So it had to do with having people that really cared about learning, having people that cared about each other, that really were more about the business of the team than just getting ahead. And I was very fortunate to have mentors that mentored me along the way. And I wouldn't be where I was if I can name 2 or 3 that basically are the reason I became a CIO or the reason I became who I was. And I wanted to give back. I mean, you gotta mentor those. And I was able to mentor some folks. Now I'm a little different in that I didn't carry, I've had a few people that I've hired more than once, but for the most part, I hired people, developed them within the organization. They went either elsewhere or they stayed with that organization as I moved on. Yeah. I did have my entourage that I kind of carried with me. It's a different, I've seen that with some, and I think that has obviously some positives, but I think it also has some real negatives. You need to really develop the people that are there and bring on really good skilled people that care about the organization, care about the team.
Nice. So as we talked about a little bit earlier, you're unique in that you left
in a lot of ways.
Yeah, aren't we all? That you left the CIO office and became president of the company. Mm-hmm. And I know there was a lot of financial goings on at that time, but still the selection of the CIO to be the president is extremely unusual. So why did they choose you to be the president out of the technology office?
Yeah, so 2 things. One, you got to understand a couple of things. They had split the conglomerate. There were 7 companies, or literally 4 main industries. They'd split them in half. I actually chose to stay with the company that got rolled out, or companies that got rolled out. The reason I got to be president is I had a positive relationship with the private equity principal who owned the company, and here's the relationship. It's not just that he and I were good friends. I was willing to be honest with him. I pretty much told him truth, one of those truth to power kind of things, and he knew if I said we were going to do something, it'd get done. And we had just finished implementing some technology across all the facilities, and he had a president that wouldn't tell him the truth, and he couldn't count on him doing stuff. So he looked at me and said, look, you're a problem solver. I know you don't know a lot of stuff, but I know I'm going to get the honest truth from you. And I know that you're going to do your best to turn this thing around, and which we did, which I'm very proud of. But it really was about being honest, having character, and doing what you say you're going to do.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is, if I'm listing my mental notes here, it's learn the business, mm-hmm. honesty, which is transparency, honesty and transparency, mm-hmm. Team building skills, and relationship management.
Yep.
Is there?
Guess what? And all that, being a technical guru is nowhere in that. And
right.
It frustrates people because. Am I technical? Yeah, I'm a geek like the rest of you guys, but I'm not a really good programmer. I can program. I'm not a really good anything. I'm a people person who can bridge the gap between high technical people and management. And in some cases, when you get a CIO, you're bridging the gap between management, 2 layers of management, and executive management, which is even harder.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. I had a help desk tech that worked for me that's moved on now to another company. One of my favorite people and hires of all time. The guy's personality was infectious. But young kid right out of school, and came into my office, and long story short, he just couldn't understand how I could have gotten to the point of being CIO and not be able to right then and there go modify Active Directory.
Right.
He says, you don't know how to do that? I said, no, I don't. Right. And he was dumbfounded by that fact. So
give me a long period of time and a whole lot of mistakes, I might be able to figure it out.
Exactly. I can learn it, but in reality, My job is to hire people like you that
Right.
are experts at it. That's the key to the secret there. So awesome,
No,
kid. I wish he still worked for us. Um, so thinking back, we've
mhm.
all had a lot of lessons that we've learned, good and bad, that made us uh, good CIOs, or at times maybe even not so good CIOs. But can you think of a lesson that you learned that sticks out in your career that really molded you?
Yeah. One of the things, and it's really kind of an add-on to this truth to power. I had this vision when I was coming up the organization, and this was at National Service Industry. I had the opportunity to work in the chairman's office, and I said, I've got it now. I can actually tell the chairman the problems that need to be solved, and I've got the truth, right? I've got it right here, and he's gonna fix it. It'll be
Yeah,
great. And his response was, "What does the division president think about that? And why? I don't know. I mean, yeah, that's the truth, but and we could save that money, but I don't know what the personal impact or the how people feel about it and all that." And I was going, "What do you mean I'm going to feel about it? We've got we're going to save dollars here. What I learned is having the right answer is only half of the piece. And I carried this with me a long way because I've seen opportunities where I had the best technical solution. I had the right answer. I mean, it was like, this is so clear. I can see it. My team can see it. But you got to sell, unfortunately, solutions up and down the chain. You can come up with a great solution, or your team can. They've got to be behind it. Or if you've got a direction, the team's got to be behind it, and the people who consume it. The best solutions that I ever came up with were the simplest solutions that we didn't think really were that great that people grabbed hold of and went crazy.
yeah,
So one of the things I learned was, it's not about how great a solution we come up with or how great a program we develop. It's about how well people understand what we're trying to accomplish and how well it meets them where they're at. Um, and that's what the chairman of the board was trying to explain to me is it's not about right or wrong or this solution or that solution. That's kind of the easy part.
yeah,
The hard part is getting things in this, and I learned that with implementing ERP systems and that, getting things in the space and having people believe in it and use it and take advantage of it and be able, all that stuff is hard.
yeah,
It's change management. It's people understanding what's going on. That's harder than the technology piece. And that's the part a CIO can be thinking they're doing a great job with great solutions, all that. And all of a sudden the business shows up and says, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. And you go, wait a minute. I got all this stuff.
yeah,
I said, but it's not doing anything for the business.
yeah,
So I think that small thing where I had this belief that once the truth got to the top, it would be obvious that what we need to do. It's not obvious. It's a whole lot more complex to move an organization or to make a change or to get something implemented or all that. And that's something that I carried throughout my career that has served me well.
cool. Okay, so one last question, and kind of the whole idea of so you want to be a CIO is, sending the elevator back down to help young managers or young technology candidates and associate learn some of the tricks of the trade to come back up. In your case, your son is CIO of a significant organization.
Yes.
So you obviously have helped him along in his career and so on. So what advice did you give him for him to succeed? And he's a pretty young guy to be a CIO, as I
He
recall.
is. He's in his mid-30s.
Yeah.
A couple things. One is I gave him the same advice that my dad gave me. My dad worked for 40 years in AT&T. Be yourself. Don't try to be anybody else. Be yourself. Be who you are and be true to that, who you are. And sometimes that means you might not stay with a company or you may move on or whatever. So that was number one. The second thing is always learn the business. Always know what the nuances of the business are and what's driving, because your COO, your CFO, those guys are dealing with a whole bunch more stuff than you are. and you need to figure out how to be aligned with those guys and how to make those guys have the technology that really, you know, improves their business. You need to be a problem solver and get that resolved for those people that those are your constituents, right? The people, and in some cases it's an external client too, but I mean, you need to know the business and know what the driver is. And you need to develop your staff. You need to pick and develop team members that you can count on, that are willing to learn and be flexible. And that's the last piece. I mean, you know, the calls I get from them are when something just totally crazy comes up. And I've had, you know, crazy things happen to me throughout my career, and he's had crazy things. And he'll call me up and say, Dad, have you ever seen this? And I went, yeah. And part of it is just kind of rolling with it. Part of it is being able to be flexible. Part of it is to be able to pivot. Part of it is to have a team that can pivot with you. But there are things that are going to come out of nowhere for you. And I think the last thing, and he's done it better than I, he became a CIO. He had a CIO that he reported to that really did a good job of developing. He actually was able, in the company he was at before his CIO job, to actually work in all different areas, both internationally and domestically. And it served him extremely well. So I pride that CIO with developing him probably better than me. I'm just happen to be the guy he calls on occasion when he needs some advice. But the bottom line is, it really is about giving back and building a team and you know, taking opportunities that are in front of you when they you know, they show up.
Yeah.
And that's how he got one. He took an opportunity that in an industry he was not in, that you know, that he basically said, yeah, I can do that, and he jumped in and has done a very good job over the last, I guess he's been there 5.5 years now. So.
Yeah, good for him. That's a great story. His career so far, particularly as a young guy. So, well, that's it.
Well, I hope this was helpful. I mean,
it was very much helpful. I appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thank you, Rick, and it's good seeing you again, and good luck.
Okay, thank you, Ed.